Hello guys and welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Greg and this is the penultimate starting 11 show where I'm going to be giving you my predicted lineup for this Monday's game at Bramall Lane, as well as the freshest round of injury news from Ancelotti's latest press conference. So what Ancelotti has told us is that Mason Holgate, Yerry Mina and Fabian Delph will not be seen for the rest of the season. They won't compete in the last two games, which is a shame especially for Mason Holgate, who's had such a breakout season. Obviously showed flashes of what he could do last season at West Brom whilst he was out on loan, but no one predicted just how instrumental he was going to be this season for us. He's been a real breakout star, and I think it's almost a bit of a metaphor for our season, the way that his injuries come right at the end and we've just sort of petered out. They've sort of tracked against each other. With Mina and Delph, it's not so much of an issue because we haven't seen them for vast swathes of the season anyway through injuries. And that's the latest injury news. So let's look at what we think the team's going to look like. I'm predicting 3 changes from the lineup that started against Aston Villa. In goal, I think we'll still see Jordan Pickford. Obviously, Ancelotti has now talked a little bit more specifically about what his issues with Pickford have been, in terms of, saying he's in a bad spot, and everyone has these bad runs of form, but he still says he has faith in Jordan Pickford as a keeper. So I think we'll see Pickford in goal as we have done pretty much throughout the whole season. Obviously, he nearly had that injury at the beginning of last game. We'll have to see if that's had any sort of effect, but Ancelotti didn't seem to say that had been an issue or was going to be anything recurrent in the future. Luca Dean at left back. Obviously, it'd be nice to see Baines, especially if this is his last season, but Luca Dean is at the moment the superior left back. We saw a little bit of Leighton Baines, but he was in that sort of more wing back position that doesn't suit him so well. I don't see a reason for taking Luca Dean out other than sentimentality for Leighton Baines. Luca Dean's been fantastic. He's been probably our best player this season for me, in terms of still bringing a level of quality when maybe the players around him aren't performing so well. Then one of the centre-backs who will replace Mason Holgate will be obviously Branthwaite, who I think had quite an impactful debut, I guess you could call it. I know he didn't start, but he played the majority of the game, so the first real show that Everton fans have seen of him. But he had such an impactful spell in that game. He looked strong on the ball. He wasn't afraid to pass it. I think that's the main thing. He just didn't look like he was going to bottle it every time he was on the ball, like so many players we have in the squad at the moment do. He looked quite solid. Next to Keane, they looked like quite a good partnership, both of them. Quite of the same build, of the same type of centre-back. You didn't have one of them you thought was particularly nimble. But Branthwaite, for a bigger lad, he got around quite quickly. They just look like two no-nonsense centre-backs together, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with having that. So Branthwaite, and then I've obviously given away who I think will be next to him, and with the absence of Yerry Mina and Mason Holgate, I think it's quite obvious that it'll be Michael Keane. A good turn in form for him since the restart. I've been quite happy with what he's been doing. He looks defensively solid. He looks like he's eradicated little mistakes from his game that he had going into the COVID break. So I think he's one of the first names we should be looking at next season as to, I'd be unhappy if they left. There's quite a few players I think will be put straight on a transfer list. I think Michael Keane has probably played his way into safety in these last few games. Then at right back, it's the decision of Sidibe and Coleman. I've gone with Coleman keeping his place. I think, as I've said, Sidibe won't be here next season, in my opinion. It is my prediction. So, why are we wasting around giving him game time when he's not that much better than Coleman? I'd say he's better at delivering the ball, but Coleman's just a better right back. He's a captain on the field. A lot of people have different views on how good a captain he actually is with his motivational speeches, but he's better defensively, I'd say. So Seamus Coleman at right back. And then the vacuous area of the pitch is who is going to be the two centre mids that are sacrificed to whatever midfield battles they're going to be facing. And I think it's going to be one of them, Andre Gomez. Is he performing as well as he has been? I think I read that he's the most dribbled round player since he's come back from his horrific injury. It's understandable, right? You've had this horrible injury. Obviously, you're going to be scared to lunge into tackles. Hopefully that side of his game will be gone. Hopefully he'll build that confidence back, and giving him a few games now will help him get back into that match situational awareness and thinking he can test his leg again. Maybe he's just taking it easy for the rest of the season and thinking there's no point me injuring this for 2 games. For 2 games worth of quite pointless football at this point. We have nothing to fight for. That's not the mindset I want him to have, but I'm just trying to rationalise why he's got this sort of he's sort of sunk back into his shell since he's come back from this injury. That being said, against Villa, he had 5 minutes of being fantastic towards the end. He played like we've been sort of promised. He has this ability to play these Hollywood balls, and just we always call him this Rolls Royce, and we saw that at the end of the Villa game. And if he can carry that on, fantastic. But I think the problem is that he's got no one next to him that will do the dirty work, do the disrupting, break up play from the other team. I think he's going to be lumbered with Tom Davies next to him, who obviously is not as good defensively as Gay was when Gomez played with him, or Gabamin could be. I think we saw in Crystal Palace that combination against Crystal Palace at the beginning of the season. I might be wrong. So I think it will be Davis, who I think as well would be a much better player with someone who's a bit of a disruptor next to them. I'm not saying that Davies is the problem in that combination. I know he gets a lot of stick at the moment, but Davis is certainly not a partner for Gomez. I don't think they complement each other well, but we don't have the kind of player we need, other than maybe Beningame, who I've seen a lot of shouts to bring in. But Ancelotti doesn't seem interested at all. He wasn't even on the bench last week. On the left is another change. I think Gordon was rested. Fair enough. No need to tire him out too much. We obviously had 3 games in 7 days. I think it was something like that. And Gordon was probably our most energetic player across them all. So fair enough, he probably needed a rest. Bernard looked really off the beat as he came in. So I think Gordon will take his position back. Now he's had a bit of rest. Bernard might be seeing his last few appearances for the club. I think he's really, since this restart, not stuck a claim to his name. I think every time he's come back, he's looked off the beat. He's looked tired. He's looked, he's got feet like sponges at the moment. Everything's just bouncing off. So Gordon back on the left. I think on the right side we'll see another change. I don't think Iwobi's done enough since the restart, so I think Walcott will come back on. I'm not a huge fan of Walcott. I don't think he's anywhere near the levels he can play at. I guess it's because we're playing him as a right midfielder. He's clearly a winger. We had him playing at wing back, for God's sake. But I think Walcott does have the quality to actually get a delivery in. Iwobi's all seem a bit half-baked along the floor into the box, like a little sweeping ball in that always seems to get beaten at the near post. But Walcott will put the graft in. He's a good system player for Ancelotti, and I think he'll take a place back out on the right. Then up front, it's quite predictable. Richarlison will be one of them. Like Luca Dean, kept his form throughout this season. Kept his form since the restart, I think. So why wouldn't he stay? And unlike keeping his form, unfortunately, Calvert-Lewin, who will be next to him in my prediction, has dropped off since the restart. In my opinion, personally, I think I would rest him. He looks absolutely knackered. He looks like he needs a break, and it doesn't surprise me the amount of work he does running into corners, coming back to the midfield to get the ball. He must be shattered. I would personally probably start Moise Kean up there. Ancelotti came out recently and said he could be starting for us from next season, and he won't be leaving the club, which I think is very interesting. So why not give him a bit of game time now? But I think Calvert-Lewin will start because I have no indication from Ancelotti that he plans to change anything. If he hasn't done it yet, why would he do it now? Especially as we've had a little bit of a more extended break now where Calvert-Lewin might have rested and recuperated. So that's my team. Pickford in goal, Luca Dean at left back, Branthwaite, Keane and Coleman making up the rest of the back line, Davies and Gomez at centre mid, with Gordon on the left, Walcott on the right, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin up top. Let me know what you guys think. Would you have Beningame in? Would you start Moise Kean? And who do you think, looking at the sort of players I'm mentioning, could go? That being said, let's hope next season I've got a few more quality players to deal with when I'm doing these, and let's also hope for a good result. I'll see you guys next time.